Hello and welcome to Reporters, the programme that brings you the very best of France 24 reporting from around the world. In this edition, we head to Cameroon to focus on the persecution of homosexuals. The victims of bullying and violence, gay people in the country are also subjected to heavy legal penalties, with rights groups citing institutionalised homophobia. Nonetheless, activists and lawyers are trying to change things, a tough task in a nation where religion plays a major role. Our journalists Mark Perelman and Johan Baudin went to investigate.
Not a day goes by that Marie doesn't come to this cemetery in Yaoundé, where her son is laid to rest.
I lost a big boy, a great child who would have looked after me.
She's carrying the grief of a mother who's lost her firstborn, murdered at the age of 33. Did he die because he was gay?
What do I know? Are there no gay people here? Of course there are. Does that mean he should have been killed? Does that mean he should have been tortured? Because he was gay?
Her son's body was found in his home last July. Eric Limbembe was well known as a gay rights activist in Cameroon. At his funeral, his family and friends were joined by the British and American ambassadors, a strong message to the authorities. For Eric's fellow activists, there's no doubt this was a hate crime. Eric's best friend is visiting his home for the first time since the murder. It was he who discovered the body.
It was here. When I arrived, there was a very strong smell. I thought, damn, I hope that's not a decomposing body. The state his body was in, his head was really, you could tell that someone really tortured him. His face, his nose, his mouth, his testicles, but especially his face.
But there was never an autopsy, and there's been little headway in the inquiry. The lack of progress is sowing fear among Eric's friends.
So whose turn is it now? Who will be the next victim? I'm so frightened. I have to live a very quiet, a hidden life.
Like in many African countries, homosexuality is a criminal offence in Cameroon, punishable by up to 5 years in prison. The law was long ignored, but it's now being zealously applied. Marc Lambert was one of the first to be prosecuted. It happened in 2005. Around the same time, local media published lists of high-profile people presumed to be gay.
I used to come here to have a drink with friends. One night, at around 10:15, 2 police cars pulled up outside. They said they were going to arrest everyone. At the station, they announced that they had broken up a gay gang.
After the crackdown, Mark refused to pay to be released. He was tried and convicted with 10 other defendants.
In the end, I had to spend 12 months and 12 days in prison. It brings me to tears when I think about it. It was so hard, so inhumane. In there, as soon as you're labeled a homosexual, you just don't deserve to live.
Since Mark's imprisonment, many more gay men have been locked up. France 24's team tried to visit the central prison in Yaoundé, but were refused at the gate.
When a foreigner arrives, we have to register them.
You can't make an exception on a Sunday?
No.
On a later day, the team managed to smuggle a camera into the prison to record a 21-year-old inmate who just the night before had been assaulted.
They had sex with me 3 times.
You were raped?
Yes, by the chief inmate in my section. There are men who threaten me. I can't sleep at all.
How long have you been here?
13 months.
Why were you arrested?
Because we gay people don't hide.
You don't want to pay to move to a different wing?
Yes, I do.
How much would it cost?
You'll have to ask him.
By him, he means a prison officer who he has to bribe if he wants to be protected from violence. At the moment, around a dozen gay men are stuck in Cameroonian prisons, most put there on the word of other people. Alice Nkom is one of the few lawyers willing to defend them.
There are a lot of people who say I'm looking for notoriety, that I defend the indefensible, that I'm the devil's lawyer. But there you go.
Bonjour Emmanuel, bébé Mo, bonjour François.
Nkom's commitment to the cause has won her enemies.
Oui.
Get ready to pay the ultimate price. You think you're safe? No homos in Cameroon? Good night, whore.
Death threats don't intimidate this strong-willed woman who doesn't hesitate to denounce the government for its repression.
Cameroon is by far the leader in arrests linked to homosexuality. There is nothing that can justify state-sanctioned homophobia, a crime perpetrated by the state. Because that's what it amounts to. It's the same thing. As soon as you're talking about state-sanctioned discrimination, you're talking about apartheid.
An accusation rejected by authorities.
No homosexual person is persecuted because of his sexual orientation. None. I would like to remind you that 98% of Cameroonians are believers, and whether Muslim or Christian, their faiths condemn homosexuality.
Qu'il s'agisse des musulmans comme des chrétiens.
It's a day of celebration at Yaoundé Cathedral. 10 new priests are being ordained to spread the good word. Athanase Bala, Bishop Emeritus of Bafia, takes an opportunity to remind them of the Church's teaching.
When God created the world, He created men and women to make the family. Some people talk as if Sodom and Gomorrah never existed. God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. It was the first destruction.
A message the newly minted priests hear loud and clear.
Nowhere do you see two billy goats mating. A billy goat always looks for a nanny goat. How can men, who are created in the image of God, try to change what God has instituted as a natural law?
Cameroon's media also plays a part in whipping up anti-gay feeling.
A homosexual was beaten up in Ngumu. He's in jail there now. We don't know much about what happened. This is Satellite FM at the heart of the city, your source for all the horrors happening in Cameroon today, so stay tuned.
What were you talking about? Someone was beaten up?
A homosexual. Because every time we talk about the president doing this and that, no one's interested. But when we report that two homosexuals were caught together, that makes people want to listen. People react straight away, saying they condemn it, and they don't want it.
Condemn what?
Well, this practice, homosexuality.
This attitude is on the radio, the TV, and in the printed press. It was a weekly paper, The Anecdote, that several years ago printed a list of allegedly gay men who occupied positions of power. Despite a warning from the government, the publisher won't back down. He claims there's a gay mafia active at the highest levels.
It would be okay if homosexuals would keep to themselves. If they impose it on people who are applying for public jobs, that's when we denounce it. I'm not saying this happens as a rule, but there are young graduates just out of university who come to our media and complain that they were qualified for civil service exams, but were asked, well, who is your godfather, if you know what I mean?
Le Carrefour de la Joie, the crossroads of joy. This is a meeting point for gay people in Yaoundé. Places like these are a target of the Cameroonian Youth Rally, a group that has organised anti-gay protests. Its leader is a controversial journalist.
On Saturday nights, we target bars and places we call the axis of evil. We film the customers and the videos are material proof. We can turn them into the relevant authorities. For us, homosexuality is a crime against humanity. In Cameroon, there are two things that could provoke civil war: closing the breweries or legalizing homosexuality. If that happens, the machetes would come out. Those animals should hide. Their kind don't belong here.
As Naomi walks through her neighbourhood, she's greeted with sniggers. Naomi was born Frankie Jome. She does her best to avoid drawing attention to herself.
My family rejected me, saying that transvestites weren't welcome. Go do that somewhere else. But it's not my fault. Nature made me this way.
The only relative to reach out and offer her shelter was her grandmother.
She's never seen me like this because she's been blind for 20 years. She hasn't seen me, she's just heard about me. How do you feel about the life I've chosen? Does it make you happy or sad?
No. I love my child.
She says that I'm her son and she won't reject me, but I have to leave because there are death threats against me here.
But gay rights activists see signs that the mentality is changing. Changing even within the church. For the first time, a prominent member of Cameroon's hierarchy, Cardinal Christian Toumi, has spoken out against criminal prosecutions of gay people. Do you believe homosexuality is a crime?
No, it's a sin, it's not a crime. I don't think gay people should be in prison, for example. It's not right to equate it with immoral acts, like killing someone.
Progress, but for most gay people in Cameroon, it's still impossible to take a place in society while staying true to their sexuality. Marc Lambert is one of the few who has. He brings the France 24 team to visit his family home.
That's my mom, cooking away.
His mother is preparing a meal for the entire household. In the adjoining room, Marc's brother, an evangelical pastor, reads the Bible. Outside, Marc welcomes his friends, all under the watchful eye of his father, the traditional chief.
He's the prince, the last born. Under God, everyone is united. I'm a Roman Catholic. Whether you're black or white, for me, we're all one.
A family of all beliefs under the same roof. Tolerance like this is rare in Cameroon. Marc Lambert and other gay rights activists know their fight will be long and dangerous.
For more, I'm joined by one of the journalists behind that report, Mark Perelman. Thanks for joining us, Mark. There's another case, aside from the ones that we saw in your report, which has highlighted this problem in Cameroon, and it's quite a heartbreaking one.
Yes, just after we returned from Cameroon, one person we tried to see but were prevented from seeing by his family, Roger Mbede, died in his village on January the 10th. And we tried to see him, but we were told, he's with his family in his village. You cannot really go there. And it turns out that his family didn't really treat him. He was ill since he got out of prison a year or so ago, and they refused to give him treatment. And according to his lawyer, they did this on purpose because they felt that if he died, this will really make sure that this bad person, this bad spirit, as they called him, would go away and that the family could regain its name and its reputation. So it shows the stigmatization of homosexuals in Cameroon, including in their families.
Anti-gay legislation exists in a number of countries around the world. I guess one of the most high-profile ones is Uganda, but it's applied with particular vigour in Cameroon. Why is that?
Yes, that's a question we were asking ourselves when we decided to go to Cameroon, because you can go to prison for up to 5 years, which is less severe than in many other countries, including Uganda or Nigeria, which recently approved such a bill. However, there are more gays in Cameroon in prison than in other countries. The reason seems to be that some 7 or 8 years ago, the media started a frenzy of denouncing so-called homosexuals at the highest levels. And the president, the government said, well, you cannot go into anyone's bedroom, please refrain from doing this. But instead, they revert their attitude towards the lower classes, and the justice system, the police, the media are haunting really homosexuals, but more popular one, and it stayed like this, encouraged, it must be said, by traditional chiefs and sometimes the church.
And as you say, religion, or at least the religious authorities, surely have a role to play in all of this as well.
Yes, I mean, there have been declarations by very senior religious figures in Cameroon, very harsh words used against homosexuals, saying they were less than animals. Maybe things are changing. We see in the report the Cardinal of Douala, Christian Toomey, who says, well, maybe they should not go in prison. Okay, on the moral level, it's wrong. Things should be corrected. But at least on a legal level, they should not go to prison. Nevertheless, this is the exception, because all the discourse is really about saying gays are bad, gays have been imported from the West, they're not Africans, and so this is why they should be discriminated against, and this is why they should go to jail.
Mark Perelman, thank you very much for joining us. That's all we have time for now on this edition of Reporters. Do join us again soon.